For more than 80 years, this story remained hidden. Not because it never happened, but because no one was supposed to know. I spent 40 years pretending this mission never existed, because I was ordered to. Every report was locked away. Every photograph disappeared. Every name was removed, mine included. In 1944, I was OSS. Our job was not to win battles. It was to make sure they could be won. If the Germans discovered what we were protecting, Normandy might never have happened. And this is the secret I was never supposed to tell.
Secrets of World War II that are still hidden. I remember the smell first. Burned tobacco, wet leather, old paper, funny. After all these years, those are the things that stayed with me. Not the gunfire, not the explosions, just the smell. By the spring of 1944, I had already learned one important lesson. A bullet could kill a man. A lie could destroy an entire army. I wasn't a soldier, at least. Not the kind history remembers. My battlefield wasn't a beach or a trench. It was a room where one wrong word could change the course of the war. Back then, very few people even knew we existed. Officially, we weren't there. Officially, we didn't exist. That was exactly how Washington wanted it. We belonged to an organization that was never supposed to become famous. The Office of Strategic Services, the OSS. Our victories belong to someone else. Our failures would belong only to us. I was 28 years old when they called me into a secure room beneath our London headquarters. The windows were sealed. The guards checked my identification 3 separate times, even inside the building. No one spoke above a whisper. That was unusual. Men who planned invasions normally spoke with confidence. That morning, everyone looked afraid. There were 6 of us around the table. No introductions, no handshakes, just 6 men. Waiting, an elderly British intelligence officer entered carrying a thin leather folder. No rank on his uniform, no decorations, nothing that could identify who he really worked for. He placed the folder in the center of the table. No one touched it. He looked at each of us before speaking. I hope every one of you understands that if this mission fails, millions of people may never know why. I had heard speeches before. Generals loved speeches. This wasn't one. This sounded like a warning. He finally opened the folder. Inside, there wasn't a battle plan. There wasn't a map. There wasn't even a photograph. There was only one sentence, typed on a single sheet of paper. The secret must survive. Nothing else. No explanation. No destination. No names. I remember staring at those 4 words. The secret must survive. Not. The messenger. Not. The mission. The secret. That was the first moment I realized whatever we were protecting was more valuable than any of us. The officer closed the folder again. You are not here to defeat Germany. He paused. You are here to make sure Germany defeats itself. I didn't understand what he meant. Not yet. None of us did. Only later. Would I discover that the greatest weapon used before D-Day wasn't carried by soldiers. It wasn't hidden inside bombers or battleships. It existed inside the minds of German commanders. They simply didn't know it yet. For months, the Allies had been building the largest deception operation in military history. Fake radio traffic, inflatable tanks, wooden aircraft, entire armies. That existed only on paper. Every fake report, every false transmission, every carefully planted rumor was designed to convince Adolf Hitler that the invasion would strike somewhere else. Not Normandy, Pas de Calais. That was what Berlin had to believe. Every additional day, they believed it. Saved thousands of Allied lives. If they stopped believing, everything collapsed. The newspapers would later call it Operation Fortitude. At the time, we called it survival. My assignment wasn't glamorous. No medals, no heroic charges. I wasn't carrying explosives. I wasn't parachuting behind enemy lines. I was carrying certainty, or rather, making sure uncertainty stayed alive. Because if the Germans ever became certain about where the invasion would land, the beaches of Normandy would become a slaughterhouse. That afternoon, a British colonel handed me a new identity, a new passport, a new profession, even a new birthday. For the next several weeks, the man I had been would cease to exist. I folded the documents, slipped them inside my jacket, and signed a paper promising something I would keep for more than 40 years. I would never tell anyone where I was going, not my family, not my closest friends, not even another OSS officer who wasn't assigned to the mission. The fewer people who knew, the safer the secret remained. Late that evening, London disappeared beneath another German air raid. Sirens echoed through the streets. Bombs exploded somewhere across the Thames. People rushed underground. I stayed where I was, standing beside a small window, watching the city burn. An RAF pilot once told me, "You can always tell when London is afraid." I asked him how. He smiled. The lights disappear. He was right. Within minutes, the city became almost completely black. Only the fires remained. That night, watching London vanish into darkness, I asked myself a question I had never considered before. What if the greatest victory of the war wasn't going to belong to the soldiers fighting on the beaches? What if it belonged to the people whose names would never appear in history books? The next morning, at exactly 5:40, I boarded a small Royal Navy motor launch. No markings, no ceremony, no farewell, only 4 crewmen, 2 British commandos, 1 radio operator, and me. The captain looked toward the gray horizon before quietly saying, "If anyone asks, this boat never left England." The engines came to life, slowly. The coastline disappeared behind the fog. France waited somewhere beyond the mist, occupied, watching, listening, and hunting men exactly like me. I checked the inside pocket of my jacket one last time. The documents were still there, dry, untouched, worth more than my own life. I had no idea that before the week was over, the Gestapo would know someone had entered France. They just wouldn't know who. And that mistake would become the beginning of the most dangerous mission I had ever been asked to survive. The English coast vanished behind us within minutes. Fog swallowed everything. It was almost comforting. The less I could see, the less I had to think about what waited on the other side. No one spoke. The captain kept his eyes fixed on the compass. The radio operator listened through his headphones without saying a word. Even the engine seemed determined not to make more noise than necessary. I had crossed the channel before, but never like this. Never carrying something that wasn't supposed to exist. After several hours, the captain finally pointed toward a faint shape emerging through the morning mist. France. It didn't look like France. It looked abandoned. Gray cliffs, silent beaches, fishing boats tied to empty docks. Only when we moved closer did I see them. German soldiers, machine gun nests, concrete bunkers, barbed wire stretching across the coastline. Europe wasn't occupied. It was imprisoned. We landed far from any official harbor. A small fishing village, half destroyed by years of war. Waiting for us stood an old fisherman. At least, that's what he wanted everyone to believe. He never introduced himself. He simply looked at me, then at my suitcase, then nodded. "Follow me." That was all he said. We walked through narrow streets where every window seemed to be watching us. Children stopped playing. Women lowered their eyes. Old men pretended not to notice us. Nobody wanted to remember faces. Remembering could get you killed. The fisherman led me into a weather barn overlooking the sea. Inside, there was no fishing equipment, only radios, maps, boxes of ammunition, and 6 members of the French resistance. One of them was a young woman no older than 25. She extended her hand. "My name is Claire." I answered without thinking. "My name is..." She interrupted me immediately. "No." She smiled. "You don't have one anymore." The room fell silent for the first time. I understood what the British officer had meant. The man I had been was gone. Claire handed me a folded piece of paper. It contained only 3 lines. Never travel alone. Never sleep twice in the same place. Trust no one who already knows your name. I looked back at her. Who wrote this? She folded the paper again. Someone who survived. Before I could ask another question, the barn door burst open. Every weapon in the room was raised in less than a second. A young resistance courier stumbled inside, struggling to catch his breath. "The Germans," he gasped. "They're searching every road north of the village." Nobody panicked. Nobody shouted. Claire calmly walked to the table and unfolded a map. "How many trucks?" 4. "Gestapo?" He nodded. "And Wehrmacht?" She looked directly at me. "They know someone crossed the channel." My stomach tightened. "Do they know who?" "No." She paused. "But they're going to find out." That sentence changed everything. Until that moment. I believed I was invisible. Now I realized. The hunt had already begun. Less than 10 minutes later, I was wearing different clothes. Gone was the carefully pressed civilian jacket issued in London. In its place, old work boots, a worn wool coat, a flat cap that smelled like engine oil. I looked less like an intelligence officer and more like a mechanic who hadn't slept in weeks. Perfect. Claire studied me for a moment. "You still walk like an American." "I beg your pardon?" "You're too confident." She stepped closer. "French civilians don't walk with confidence anymore." She was right. Fear changes the way people move, the way they speak, even the way they breathe. For the next hour, she taught me how to survive without firing a single shot. Don't make eye contact with German officers. Never answer immediately. People under occupation think before they speak. Walk close to buildings. Avoid open squares. If church bells ring twice, disappear. If they ring 3 times, run. No training manual in Washington had ever taught me that. As we prepared to leave, an elderly resistance member handed me a bicycle. I stared at him. "A bicycle?" He laughed quietly. "The Germans search cars. They rarely search tired men on bicycles." He had a point. We left the village separately. Claire disappeared down one street. I took another. Within minutes, occupied France swallowed me whole. German flags hung from government buildings. Propaganda posters covered stone walls. Every intersection held armed soldiers. The war wasn't hidden here. It was everywhere. I had traveled less than 3 miles when I saw the checkpoint. 2 Wehrmacht trucks blocked the road. Sandbags, machine guns, steel barriers. 3 civilians already stood in line. A farmer, an old woman, a teenage boy carrying sacks of potatoes. Each waited silently. Nobody complained. Nobody dared. A German sergeant examined every document with painful patience. When my turn came, he extended his hand. Ausweis. I handed him my forged papers. He studied them for several seconds, then looked directly into my eyes. What brings you north? I answered exactly as rehearsed. Engine repairs. He looked unconvinced. For whom? A farmer outside Caen. Which farmer? I hesitated, only for a fraction of a second. But he noticed. His expression changed. He looked down at the documents again, then toward another officer standing near the truck. For a moment, I thought it was over. The second officer began walking toward us, slowly, without saying a word. His black uniform caught my attention before anything else. Not Wehrmacht, Gestapo. He stopped only a few feet away, looked at my face, then at the papers, then back at me. His eyes never blinked. You speak French well. I was born near Rouen. Were you? Yes. He smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. Funny. I don't hear the accent. Every instinct told me not to speak, so I didn't. He stepped even closer, close enough that I could smell tobacco on his coat. Then, without warning, he handed my papers back. You may go. I nodded once, picked up the bicycle, and started walking. Not too fast, not too slow, exactly as Claire had taught me. 10 steps, 20, 30. I could feel their eyes on my back. Then, behind me, I heard one word. Halt. He froze. Not me, the Gestapo officer, for just a fraction of a second. He tilted his head as if trying to remember where he had seen my face before. The road fell silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. My hands tightened around the bicycle's handlebars. The sergeant who had inspected my papers looked toward the Gestapo officer. Is there a problem, Herr Oberleutnant? He didn't answer. His eyes never left mine. Instead, he slowly walked around me, one full circle, studying my boots, my hands, my jacket, every detail. You said you repair engines. Yes. He reached into my bicycle basket. Inside were only rusted tools, a greasy cloth, and a broken carburetor. Exactly where they were supposed to be. He picked up the carburetor, turned it over, smiled. American. My heart stopped. I looked at the part. So did he. Stamped into the metal, barely visible beneath the grease, were 3 tiny letters. F-O-R-D. One careless mistake. One forgotten piece of equipment. Enough to destroy months of preparation. He looked back at me. So, you repair German tractors using American parts? I forced myself not to answer immediately. People under pressure answer too quickly. Claire had taught me that. I shrugged. I repair whatever still works. For the first time, the officer laughed. Not loudly, just enough to make everyone around him relax. He tossed the carburetor back into the basket. Resourceful. Then he stepped aside. You may leave. I thanked him with a slight nod. Nothing more. Never thank a Gestapo officer too warmly. Never too cold. Everything had meaning. I climbed onto the bicycle, pedaled away. Slowly, the checkpoint disappeared behind me. Only when I reached the next bend in the road did I allow myself to breathe. I had survived, or so I believed. Less than 5 minutes later, a church bell rang once, then again, 2 bells. I remembered Claire's warning. Disappear. Without hesitation, I turned off the road and entered a narrow orchard. Apple trees surrounded me. The branches were heavy with leaves. Perfect cover. I pushed the bicycle deeper between the rows. Then I heard engines. Several German trucks. Not on the main road. Coming toward the orchard. This wasn't random. Someone had reported me. I crouched behind a stone wall. 3 trucks rolled past the entrance, then stopped. Doors opened. Voices. Dogs. My pulse hammered against my ribs. One soldier shouted. Another answered. A German shepherd barked. Closer. Much closer. I reached inside my coat. Not for a pistol. For a small glass capsule. If captured, every coded contact hidden inside my notebook had to disappear. 1 drop of the chemical inside the capsule, and every page would become unreadable within seconds. That was my real weapon, not a bullet. The barking stopped. I risked a glance over the wall. A German soldier was pointing directly toward the orchard. Another released the dog. The animal ran straight toward me. 40 yards, 30, 20. I slowly closed my hand around the capsule. If the notebook was lost, weeks of coordination between London and the French resistance would vanish with it. The dog suddenly stopped. Its ears lifted. Then it turned away. A rabbit burst from the bushes. The shepherd chased it without hesitation. The soldiers cursed. One of them laughed. Another called the dog back. For the second time that day, luck had chosen my side. Luck. And nothing else. An hour later, I reached an abandoned flour mill outside Cannes. Its windows had been boarded shut years earlier. To anyone passing by, it looked deserted inside. It was one of the most important resistance safe houses in northern France. Claire was already waiting. So, you met the Germans. I nodded. They're getting closer. She wasn't surprised. They always do. An older man entered carrying a portable radio no larger than a briefcase. Without introducing himself, he placed a pair of headphones on the table. We intercepted something. Static filled the room. Then, German voices. Short, precise, professional. Claire translated quietly. Unknown courier, possibly British. Forged civilian documents. Traveling by bicycle. Every description matched me. The room fell silent. Then came the sentence none of us wanted to hear. The suspect may be carrying information related to the expected Allied invasion. No one moved. No one spoke. The Germans still didn't know what I carried. But they had begun asking the right questions. That meant we had far less time than we thought. The old radio operator slowly removed the headphones. They're learning. Claire looked directly at me. No, she corrected him. Someone is teaching them. Those words hit harder than any explosion. Someone, inside our own network, was feeding information to the enemy. Not guesses, not rumors, facts, enough facts. To put the Gestapo one step behind me at every turn, for the first time since arriving in France, I realized something terrifying. The greatest danger wasn't the soldiers searching the roads. It was the person already sitting at one of our tables, and they were still out there. Listening to everything we said, the room remained silent for several seconds. Nobody wanted to be the first to speak. Finally, The old radio operator broke the silence. Maybe there isn't a traitor. Claire looked at him. What do you mean? He slowly adjusted the headphones around his neck. The Germans are good. Very good. They don't need someone feeding them everything. They only need. He tapped at the map. Enough small mistakes. His words stayed with me. Until then, I had been looking for a hidden enemy. Now, I realized something far more dangerous. The enemy was paying attention. Every checkpoint, every forced identity, every unusual bicycle, every unexpected radio signal, individually, none of them mattered. Together, they painted a picture, and that picture was me. Claire immediately began changing the evacuation routes. No one uses yesterday's path. She pointed toward 3 different villages. We split. If one of us disappears, the others keep moving. Simple, cold, necessary. Nobody argued. Outside, rain had begun falling. The kind of cold spring rain that turned every dirt road into mud. Good. Mud erased footprints, but it also slowed everyone down, including us. I left the mill shortly before sunset. This time, without the bicycle, too recognizable. Instead, I joined a small group of farmers driving 2 wooden carts filled with potatoes. Nobody looked twice at hungry civilians. At least, that was the plan. The road north remained crowded with German patrols. More than before, something had changed. Even ordinary soldiers looked nervous. One young Wehrmacht corporal stopped our wagon. He searched the potatoes, lifted sacks, checked wheels, then suddenly asked, "Have you seen strangers?" The old farmer beside me answered first. "Only Germans." The corporal smiled. Even the other soldiers laughed. For a brief moment, the war almost felt normal. Then, another vehicle arrived. Black, polished, Mercedes, Gestapo. The laughter disappeared immediately. A senior officer stepped out. Tall, calm, perfectly pressed uniform despite the rain. He carried no weapon. He didn't need one. Men like him carried authority instead. He walked directly toward our cart. His eyes scanned every face, one by one, without hurry. When they reached mine, he stopped. Not because he recognized me, because he noticed something else. My hands. They weren't a farmer's hands. Months spent behind desks, handling documents, radio equipment, maps. Not plows. He grabbed my wrist. Hard. "You work outdoors?" "Yes." He turned my hand toward the light. "No. You work with paper." Nobody moved. Even breathing seemed dangerous. Then, a child began crying. The officer turned his head for only a second. Just long enough. The old farmer beside me dropped an entire sack of potatoes onto the muddy road. They rolled everywhere. Soldiers instinctively ran after them, shouting, laughing, cursing, complete chaos. The farmer leaned toward me without looking. "Run." I didn't hesitate. I jumped from the wagon, crossed a narrow ditch, and disappeared into a dense forest before anyone understood what had happened. Behind me, I heard gunshots. Branches snapped around my head. Birds exploded into the air. But the forest was alive, and forests have always protected men who know how to stay silent. I kept moving, not fast. Fast men make noise. Invisible men survive. Night finally arrived. I reached the safe house just before midnight. Only 3 people remained. Claire, the radio operator, and the fisherman who had welcomed me to France. Nobody smiled. Claire placed a small envelope on the table. It arrived from London. Inside, there was only one sentence. Fortitude continues.
Nothing else. No signature. No explanation. No congratulations. Just those 2 words. Fortitude continues. The deception was still working. Hitler still believed. The fake armies still existed. Every hour we survived. Thousands more Allied soldiers would step onto Normandy, believing surprise was still possible. I folded the paper carefully. For the first time since arriving in France, I allowed myself to believe. Maybe we were actually going to succeed. Then, 3 slow knocks echoed against the front door. Everyone froze. Nobody had been expected. Claire looked at me. The fisherman quietly extinguished the lamp. The room disappeared into darkness. Another 3 knocks. Slower this time. Then, a voice. In perfect French. I know you're in there. Long pause. I don't want the courier. Another pause. I only want the notebook. No one inside that room had ever mentioned a notebook outside our network. Someone, somehow, knew exactly what I was carrying. The room remained completely silent. No one answered the voice outside. No one moved. Even breathing felt dangerous. Another knock. This time, louder. Claire slowly looked toward the fisherman. He nodded once, without a word. He quietly opened a trapdoor beneath the wooden floor. A narrow stone tunnel disappeared into darkness. Go. I hesitated. And you? She smiled. If they came for you, they won't expect us to stay. That was the last time I ever saw Claire.
I climbed into the tunnel. The trapdoor closed above me. Darkness, cold stone, water dripping somewhere ahead. I moved carefully, one hand against the wall, the other protecting the notebook beneath my jacket. Several minutes later, I reached fresh air. The tunnel opened behind an abandoned church nearly 2 miles away. Dawn was beginning, somewhere beyond the trees. Church bells started ringing. Not once, not twice, 3 times. Run. Claire's first lesson. I ran, not because I was afraid anymore, but because history was already moving. Every hour brought the invasion closer. By the evening of the 5th of June, 1944, the English Channel had become something I had never imagined. Ships, thousands of them, destroyers, landing craft, hospital ships, cargo vessels, as far as the eye could see. Steel, men, and hope. None of those young soldiers knew my name. Most never would. Yet every one of them depended on something they could not see. Not rifles, not tanks, not battleships. A lie carefully built over months. A lie convincing enough to make Hitler wait. In the wrong place. Operation Fortitude had done exactly what it was designed to do. German armored divisions remained near Pas-de-Calais, waiting for an invasion that would never come. Every hour they hesitated. Thousands of Allied soldiers survived. People often ask, who won D-Day? The answer is simple. Everyone. The infantry who stormed the beaches, the sailors who crossed the channel, the pilots who filled the skies, the French resistance risking execution every single day, the code breakers, the radio operators, the agents who carried messages no one else could read. No single man won that battle, but every silent victory made the impossible possible. When Germany finally surrendered, there were no celebrations waiting for us, no medals, no headlines, no photographs. Officially, many of us had never even existed, and that was exactly how it was supposed to be. The Office of Strategic Services quietly disappeared after the war. Years later, a new organization would rise from its foundation. The world will come to know it as the Central Intelligence Agency. But to me, it would always be the OSS, the place where ordinary people were asked to carry extraordinary secrets. Every summer, I return to Normandy. Families now walk those same beaches. Children laugh where machine guns once fired. The sound of waves has replaced the sound of artillery. Peace finally won. Most visitors never think about deception. They never think about forged passports, hidden radios, resistance safe houses, or anonymous couriers riding old bicycles through occupied France. And that's alright, because history doesn't belong only to the people whose names appear in books. Sometimes, it belongs to those whose names were deliberately erased for more than 40 years. I kept my promise. I never spoke about this mission, not to my wife, not to my children, not even to my closest friends. Some secrets aren't protected by locks. They're protected by loyalty. Today, almost everyone who lived through those days is gone. The bunkers have become museums. The uniforms have faded into photographs. The voices have fallen silent, but their courage still echoes. History remembers what happened. I wanted you to know what almost happened. If this story meant something to you, if you believe the courage of those who served in silence deserves to live on, then become part of that mission. Subscribe to Echoes of Valor, because there are still countless secret missions, forgotten heroes, and hidden stories from World War II waiting to be uncovered. And if today's story inspired you to explore the real history behind these extraordinary events, you'll find a carefully selected collection of World War II books, historical models, documentaries, and authentic memorabilia in the description below. Every purchase through those links helps support this channel at no extra cost to you, allowing us to continue researching, creating, and preserving the stories that history almost forgot. Until next time, remember this: wars are remembered for their battles, but victories are often decided long before the first shot is fired. Sometimes, the most powerful weapon on Earth is a secret. Echoes of Valor.